So what is sleep training and why don't I use it in my approach to infant sleep? Hi, my name is Hava and I'm the founder of Race to Flourish. I am a 2-time certified infant sleep educator and baby sleep specialist, and I specialize in helping babies, toddlers, and their families get better sleep without sleep training. Infant sleep can be one of the hardest, most confusing parts about early parenthood. My job as a baby sleep specialist is to support your instincts as a parent, to help you better understand your child's unique cues and needs. I work with families to identify sleep solutions through connected relationships, attachment-focused, and neuroscience-based strategies and principles. The focus is not only on your child's needs and long-term mental health, but on the wellness of the entire family unit. A family is an interdependent unit, all co-regulating off of each other. To consider an integrated method, we must look at the leader and support the leader. You are the pilot flying the plane. At the root of it all, I truly believe that babies deserve nurturing care both day and night. Nurture in infancy promotes healthy brain development and a secure attachment, setting up the neural circuitry to promote a lifelong well-being. The mental health of the infant is dyadic, which means it is never just the infant. It is always the infant and the caregiver, and both must be supported holistically to benefit the well-being of the entire family. This means in my approach, I look at the entire family with plans to optimize the mental and physical well-being of the entire family, providing you skills and tools and strategy to benefit you not only in this moment and throughout this challenging season, but beyond. So what is sleep training and why don't I use it in my approach to infant sleep? A quick Google search will give you this definition: the process of training young children to fall asleep on their own, typically by means of techniques in which the child is left to cry without being comforted, either for gradually increasing periods of time or until they fall asleep. Now, there are countless methods and variations of sleep training, as I'm sure you've seen. However, they are all based off of methods that are used to change how the child behaves, how they signal. Research has shown that sleep training actually has little positive effect on the child's sleep itself, meaning they wake just as often as their non-sleep trained counterparts, they simply don't signal to their caregiver. From full extinction to time checks like the Furwer method, to the chair method, to pick up, put down, they all involve a caregiver withholding responsiveness from the child, essentially training the child out of signaling for them. The foundation of sleep training is based on the idea that babies need to learn how to self-soothe in order to get good sleep. Self-soothing is often misunderstood to mean self-regulation, one's ability to calm themselves down from a state of. However, the person who coined this term never intended it to mean self-regulation at all. The term self-soothing was created by Dr. Thomas Anders in his studies of infant sleep. He created it to mean the opposite of signaling for their caregiver. So it was certainly never meant to promote the idea that a child could calm themselves down from a distressed state to a calm state by themselves without any support at all. He was instead using it to describe the times when an infant would wake in the middle of the night and then return to sleep themselves. Babies tend to fall into two categories, the self-soothers or the signalers. He was meaning it more so to describe a temperament type and was using it to label individual wakes, not to describe a skill. The babies categorized into self-soothers tended to sleep for longer, more consolidated stretches. The babies categorized as signalers often needed more assistance from a caregiver in order to fall back asleep when they did wake at night. These babies were slower to sleep for more consolidated stretches and more likely to wake every couple of hours for a longer time. But he wasn't categorizing babies into signalers or self-soothers. He was categorizing individual wakings and temperament. These are two very different things because babies can wake, rouse, and fall asleep by themselves again. Now, this depends greatly on their circumstances, their temperament, and whether or not they have any needs that need to be met by a caregiver. But this doesn't mean that even for the self-soothers that they can do so every single time. or that we should be trying to train them to do so. So again, it wasn't a goal, but merely an observation. Now, this is important to know because the strategies often proclaimed as one size fits all may work for the self-soother's personality types. For example, waiting a couple minutes before responding to see if they settle back down to sleep. But if you have a signaler, their crying is much more likely to escalate quickly and then be again harder to return back to sleep and need even more parental intervention. But again, this is not taught as purely temperament driven. Self-soothing in the process of sleep training isn't self-soothing at all, but instead it's learning not to signal to their caregiver. Contrary to popular belief, it does not mean calming oneself down from a heightened state of emotion to a calm state and then falling asleep peacefully. Babies are neurologically and developmentally incapable of going from a heightened state of emotion to a calm state of emotion all by themselves. They depend on co-regulation, having a warm, sensitive, regulated, responsive caregiver nearby and allowing their immature brain to borrow the adult brain to, again, regulate themselves. The foundation of this ability is babies' experiences of their caregivers, timely, sensitive, consistent, and appropriate responses to their distress. And again, this is also the basis for secure attachment. So leaving a child alone in a distressed state may lead to them falling asleep eventually, but this is because they go up the arousal scale, they become flooded with stress and burn so much energy that they fall asleep as a survival mechanism. They become utterly exhausted and passed out, but they are not soothing themselves. They understand that their caregiver is not nearby, they don't know where they have gone, and they have no concept of time, so they don't know that they will come back. The part of the brain that controls emotional regulation, the prefrontal cortex, doesn't even fully develop until early 20s and doesn't even begin to develop until closer to the age of 3. When our little ones are in a stressed state, they are neurologically incapable of soothing themselves. They need physical contact and support from a regulated caregiver in order to calm themselves from a distressed state. The co-regulation calms their nervous system, and from there they are able to peacefully go to sleep. So while our babies may soothe or resettle themselves throughout some of their night waking, and this often increases in frequency as they get older and they become more capable of tending to their own needs, it is not something that we need to train or teach or blame ourselves if it is not happening. It will happen as they become developmentally capable of doing so. The idea that babies can learn how to self-soothe by being left to cry is absolutely counter to everything that we know about how babies and children actually learn. Their brain development, what neuroscience tells us, their need for co-regulation, and more. It's kind of like placing your 4-month-old on their feet and letting go and expecting them to just walk away, or throwing them in the middle of the ocean and expecting them to learn how to swim. The capacity for self-soothing is only born out of the experiences of being soothed by a caregiver hundreds and hundreds of times. Children learn from modeling and by boring the adult brain until their own brain is mature enough to do so by themselves. Again, this is not something that we teach, only support by providing them thousands upon thousands of experiences of co-regulation and soothing, and supporting your child through years. It's not a milestone that we can achieve, but really, truly, it is a lifelong process. The concept that babies need to be taught independence and that isolation is what teaches independence is again another widespread piece of misinformation out there. As we talked about in regards to attachment, true independence only comes from the deep dependence in their caregiver. From that deep security and confidence and trust is not something that we teach, but instead it happens naturally when we as caregivers are responsive, consistently meeting the needs of our children children, this is what elicits true independence. Our role as parents is to fulfill their needs generously with connection, closeness, and proximity, showing our children that they can trust us to meet their needs. Ultimately, this is why you will never find any methods, strategies, or recommendations that say to leave your child to cry in isolation for any number of time. Infants need and depend on relationships to regulate their stress, reliably and positively responding to the stress and the emotions of our little ones with touch and emotional connection. This is what builds their stress response system to be strong for life. And again, is the foundation of a secure attachment. High touch and nurture benefit your child's brain and leads them to the ability to better manage their own stress in the future, along with less anxiety and fear. This can help learning, work, relationships, overall flourishing, and happiness in life. The benefits of responsive, nurturing, positive parenting are literally countless and benefit every area of your child's brain development, not only now, but throughout their whole life. And this is what contributes to their lifelong wellness. So how do we approach infant sleep in a way that is respectful, nurturing, and responsive? The foundation of improving infant sleep is aligning ourselves with realistic expectations and goals through education about understanding what truly biologically normal infant sleep looks like, understanding your baby's unique needs and your family's needs. In this way, you are also able to have a realistic understanding of your specific baby, lifestyle, and values while also getting your own needs met.